Well, ladies and gentlemen, so my name is Dennis Tunya, and we are glad that you could be able to join us today. From wherever you are joining us, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah, from wherever you're joining us, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted that you could be able to create time to join us today. We are excited over here. We are elated. We are going to have a wonderful time today, just exchanging ideas, having very candid conversations on the best and the most adaptable ways to be able to make sure that you give the client a perfect fit. So, joining me today, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're joining us, we have one wonderful, sensational ninja. I call him Engineer Dr. Joe Garcia. This guy has so many titles. He is Dr. Joe Garcia, he's Engineer Joe Garcia, a guy with an amazing heart and a big brain, from whom we opt and always get to learn a lot of information. And today, just like they say, iron sharpens iron. And with us, Dr. Joe coming in is an ore with wealth of experience and so very skillful and suave in terms of words. We are always delighted to have you, Dr. Joe. How are you today, man?
I'm doing really well, Dennis. Hello, everybody
So
from
so good to
Mexico
have
City.
you.
I'm really happy to.
So good. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again, all the way from Mexico City. I am excited to talk about a lot of these questions that our customers have sent us. So I'm ready to go, Dennis.
Always sounds that's the music to my ears. And today, once again, ladies and gentlemen, joining us for the upteenth time. Could be a fresh face to some of you. A sensational lady. I would call her an iron lady in her own way. She's very skillful, very talented, a clinician at the Audible Center here in Nairobi, and of course a trainer with Starkey Hearing Technologies here in Africa. We have one Nahum Mokua. Hi, Nahum.
Hi, how are you, Dennis?
Hey, yeah, there you are. Good to have you, Nahum. Very welcome. Karibu sana. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm Okwani Ham, a hearing aid audiologist from Staki, Africa, working at the clinic section, Odibel, Kenya. So we're here today. Let's climb this mountain of audiology together and at least peer the peak as one family. You're welcome.
Very good. Always great to hear from you, Nahum. I admire the skills and all that, the wonderful experiences that we have all had. Of course, myself being Dennis Tunya, a trainer here in Starkey, Africa, and of course, also a hearing instrument specialist and a hearing aid audiologist. So today, ladies and gentlemen, what are we looking at? We are looking at you being able to give your patient the best listening and the best fitting experience. I'm hoping that by the end of this wonderful session that we are going to have, as a person who fits hearing aid, you shall be able to optimize fitting. You shall be able to enhance comfort, and then additionally, you shall also be able to address some of the fitting challenges that we encounter in the course of our fitting. And then finally, I'm hoping that by the end of this, the conversation shall be how to personalize a hearing solution, so that from the experience of these wonderful three wonderful, skilled, resourceful people, you can be able to learn a thing or two on the best way to give your patient a good listening experience. Let's get ourselves started. So, ladies and gentlemen, from over here, I just want to ask us. So, let's start with Dr. Joe. What do you consider a successful fit, perhaps?
What do I consider a successful fit? Well, I consider a successful fit when our patient is hearing as best as possible in a noisy situation. So we all think about, when we fit hearing aids. Oh, we're in the clinic and we fit them with the hearing aids and they're hearing our voice and everything is fine. We think that that's success, but it's not. That is not a measure of success. The measure of success comes when your patient goes back into their world and they're hearing and understanding speech as best as possible. Because it's not about, it really isn't about just fitting hearing aids and having things sound audible. It's about making sure that they're understanding speech and noise, and that takes time. It takes some time because the brain needs to rewire itself, and you have to give it time to rewire itself, from the point that you fit the hearing aids until the point where the discrimination scores are getting better. And that happens in about minimum 30 days. We have to make sure that we give our patients at least 30 days to get used to the sound, to, and I had a patient, about 3 months ago, who was a difficult patient because she's 33 years old. She has had a hearing loss for a long time. We put some hearing aids on her, and she was like, and there were Genesis hearing aids, Genesis 24 channel hearing aids. And she's like, it sounds strange. I'm not liking the sound. And I had to counsel her and say, hey, listen, this takes some time. This takes about at least 30 days. For you, it might take a little longer. And today, because she's been wearing them all the time, and because we've made some adjustments, her hearing is way better. I mean, she's understanding on the phone. She can have conversations now in noise, and it's just a better experience. So I think, Dennis, just to answer your question, what is a successful fitting? A successful fitting is when your patient is hearing better in a noisy situation, and again, acceptable noise. It's not like a concert, it's background noise, a restaurant, a family dinner, and they can have a conversation. So for me, that's a successful fitting. What do you think, Nahum? Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Um, I can add that on my end, successive fit is when you find a patient has walked in. Doesn't mean that each and every patient that comes to your clinic, they're all the same. They are all different with different listening challenges, different interests. Wherever they walk in, they need a specific thing to be tackled. So wherever patient has walked in, you've met this patient, you've carried out the assessment, a full assessment, and you've been able to counsel this patient. That's when you find out this the patient will talk, or rather will say like, these are my challenges that I have and I need them solved. Doesn't mean that you're going to solve them on a one sitting. You're going to have to work with this patient. It's a journey that you've started together with this patient. Make sure if it's a challenge with meetings, ensure that you tackle that. If it's a challenge that this person is not able to hear in noise environment, as Dr. Joe said, ensure that you tackle that. So a successive fit is when you meet each and every patient needs at a specific level differently. Thank you.
That
That
sounds
was a
very good. That's,
damn, Nahum. That was a great answer. It
I
was
know,
awesome.
I know,
Fantastic.
I know. That is
And
wonderful. That
and
is very good.
to get to that point, yeah, to get to that point, you need to know how to manage the this excuse me, the sound of the hearing aid. And so the to manage the sound of the hearing aid, and we'll go to the software here. You really need to understand, what you're looking at on the screen here. So once there's four things. There's a lot of things in the software that you can manage and do, but there's four things that you really really need to know how to do well, and actually five. Number one, your audiogram has to be perfect. I mean, as perfect as possible. So if your audiogram's off, forget about it. All of this doesn't matter. What I found is that a lot of patients don't understand instructions when you're trying to get your thresholds. So at least here in Mexico, we need to explain it in such a way that we can get good responses from our patients. And this is using, not technical words, but using words that are very excuse me, very um, daily to the patient, words that our patient knows. And so if we have a good audiogram, then we can work with this. If you look on the screen here, you can see that we have different colored lines. We've got the blue, the green, we've got the gray, and then the dashed black line at the top. And these are the most important things that you need to know. So that blue line is a volume control, really, for soft sounds. You can make soft sounds louder, you can make them softer. And then the green line is for speech. So you can make speech louder or softer. and then the other one, the top one, the gray one, that one is for 80 decibel sounds. So you can make loud sounds louder or softer. So if you think about it, you have three volume controls there where you can control different levels of volume. One of the things that you should never ever use, in my opinion, is that gain button right in the middle of bottom of the screen. So that gain button on the bottom, in the middle bottom of the screen, is not something that you should be using, because if a patient has a specific issue, for example, hey, Dennis, it's too loud. My question would be, if I were Dennis, is what is too loud? Oh, there's a lot of, like it sounds like rain or wind in the background, and I can barely understand you. So you know that's soft sounds, and you can make that blue line softer. So you can select that blue line and then just make it softer. Or if they say, your voice sounds a little soft, well, we can make my voice louder by choosing that green line and make it a little bit louder. And then at the top, you've got your MPO, your output, and that is basically it's basically the limit of how loud we're going to make the sound. So everybody has uncomfortable levels. Everybody has a pain threshold, no matter what sense you're using, your eyes, your smell, your touch, ears. All of these have, I guess you could call them, limits as to what they can handle, and the ears is nothing different. So what we want to make sure is that we're not making sounds way too loud. We want to make sure that they're loud, and they're loud and comfortable. So again, if something is way too loud, like for example they're washing dishes, or anything, like a dog barking or a baby crying or whatever it is, we can make those sounds still loud but comfortable. They're not going to cause any pain. So I would say that if you really want to do a good job, you should concentrate on these four things, soft, middle, loud, and then your limit. And if you can control the sound within this dynamic range, you're going to have happier patients. A lot of times we try to fix issues using like sound managers or frequency lowering or all these other things when our bass sound is not even good. So always get better at the very, very basic level of handling sound. This is called compression, but it really is for three volume controls and a limiter. And if you can do that based on a really good audiogram, I think that you could be in a really, really good place. What do you guys think?
Really good. I'm gathering from what you have said, since the conception of this conversation. Dr. Joe has clearly and firmly said that the process, the fitting process, and the success of a fitting is a process that takes, as he mentioned, up to around 30 days. So it's not a one day kind of thing. It's a process, it's a journey. And I also concur with what Nahum has said, that it starts with from the moment the patient comes in, how you handle them. A good audiogram. If you take a good audiogram, you take good history, and then again, as Dr. Joe has just mentioned, you pay attention to the soft sounds, you pay attention to the middle sounds, and you pay attention to the loud sounds. And of course, you also make sure that you're not too far. You are not. You're also paying attention to the MPO, the limits, the maximum MPOs, the maximum power outputs of these particular hearing aids. So this is really something. Obviously, of course, Joe, I have been a victim myself of the gain button. I honestly, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of us, including Nahum. Yes, Nahum. We have always been fond of using the particular gain button, so to be able to adjust the sounds. And it's amazing that every other time we get to interact with you, we learn a thing or two. Particularly on my own, I also consider a success of a fitting being paying attention to the hearing needs of a particular patient. Like the hearing fitting is not just about the machine that we put on a patient's ear. It's about the person that is going to be using the hearing aid. So the ultimate verification of a hearing fitting is with the patient. So this, like Joe has said, could take a moment, could take a couple of days, could take a couple of weeks, for to acclimatize. The patient could get the patient's brain could get used to the hearing, the new hearing situation within a period of time. So this, for me, is also considered success of a fitting. So unless Nahum has something to add.
Okay, in addition to what Dr. Joa said, most of the time you find that we're falling like onto the gain. That's the most pattern, or rather the pattern that we praise most of the time, but it's a new thing that we've learned today and we need to implement. You use on the software, you are able, in case you're not able to figure out, in like the patient has complained, I'm experiencing this, but you aren't able to say, like, or rather to point directly, this is the frequencies that I need to work on. You can try the advanced features that are there. The advanced features are going to ease in the work to you, and that way you're going to find out that you're being in a position of helping the patient much better than finding a reason as to why you need to guess on something that you need to do. Try as much as we can, use the software, the advanced features, use, or rather than just calling each and every frequency, if you are able to figure out this complaint, I'm able to tackle it from this area, you can sort it from that first part of the Inspire software. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nahum. Thank you very, very much. So, among some of the questions that we have received from our viewers today who've joined us, most of whom are radiologists, there is a gentleman, or rather a lady probably, who asked, when it comes to frequency lowering, when programming a loss ranging from mild to profound, how does one reduce background noise in hearing aids? And this is a very interesting question, because there is the whole idea of distortion of sound, especially in particular frequencies. When you are doing frequency transposition, when you're carrying, let's say, a frequency from 6 to 8 kilohertz, and then you're bringing it for it to be detected from between 4 to 6 kilohertz, there is an initial frequency that is already there. So how do you manage to balance between giving the patient comfort in terms of listening and clarity vis-a-vis distortion, especially with background noise being in the picture? You're muted, Dr. Joe.
Sorry, I mute myself because my throat isn't doing well. I'm
Oh,
having
man.
fit coughs, but it's okay. I'd like for one of you guys, to answer that question first before I give my point of view. Nahum or Dennis, what do you guys think?
So, like to begin with, like I mentioned, whenever one is doing frequency transposition, there is a lot of attention that needs to be paid to being able to do, of course, to run feedback cancellation, of course, to make sure that at least there is no feedback that is coming either from within the hearing aid and, of course, from outside when the patient is wearing the hearing. Normally, we suggest for two feedback cancellations to happen. There is the first feedback cancellation that happens before even a hearing aid is fitted to a patient, to be able to run, to reduce the whole discomfort of feedback from within the hearing aid. And then the second feedback cancellation happens when the patient is wearing a hearing aid, so that the acoustic coupling of the whatever domes and the acoustic options you have given can be able to match the canal. Like the hearing aid is able to automatically adjust considering the size of the canal of the patient, so to be able to minimize the risks of feedback cancellation. So when it comes to noisy and background noises, feedback could be one of the things that cause this. So whenever, before you even start to look at frequency transposition, you have to run proper feedback. You do a proper feedback cancellation to be able to make sure that at least there is a bit of comfort within the ranges that within the frequency ranges where the listening is happening, even before you do the frequency transposition from whatever frequency you want to transpose. I think that's it for me. If anybody else has something to add.
Okay, I can add on that. When it comes to a loss that is mild to profound, So we try as much as we can to focus on improving speech recognition without affecting, or rather without making other sounds more louder. And you find that in these situations, it needs more of counseling. Yeah, we need to talk to the patient, or rather give them realistic expectations, whereby you need to tell them, okay, this is what is happening. Like, you find like, this is what is happening in this situation. Okay, you don't have that, the speech understanding, or rather recognition part, but we're trying to bring it up. So it will take this patient a longer time to adjust to these new environments. And you may find like this is a new thing that the patient is having in their ears. So they are able to hear sounds that they were not perceiving before. Sometimes they may say that, oh, this thing is real, this thing is too loud, or that I'm hearing someone speaking from these directions, everything is too loud. So we can do the adjustment, but also give them realistic expectations. And we can also try as much as we can to focus on direction of microphones. That way we are able to focus on what the person is saying, or rather where we're getting speech from, rather than just speaking everything all around. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with both of you. I think that here's the thing with the hearing aids. What we need to make sure is that we make the sound good, right? We make an audible sound that's comfortable, and it takes the knowledge of knowing how to manage the sound levels, soft, medium, loud, and also the MPO. And counseling is definitely, Nahum, is part of it. Counseling is, I think, very basic. It's very, very necessary. It's one of the most basic needs in fitting hearing aids, and making sure that the patient understands that initially it's going to take some time, and it's not going to be perfect from the beginning. I think that if we manage everything, and if we make things audible, if we make things comfortable, it's a good starting point. I don't I don't use a lot of frequency lowering, because frequency lowering does cause distortion. It doesn't matter, if it's Starkey or some other company. These type of methods where you take information and you move it down to where there is already information there, and you try to mix it in, it's going to cause distortion because there's already information there. So I try to use it as less as less as possible. And if I do need to use it, I put it in a second program and not in the first program. So if they feel like they need it, then they can activate the second program and use it there. A lot of times, if I put it, and back then when I used to put it in the first program, I would have patients come back over and over and over again, and it was, and I tried to make it better, and you try to, use certain methods to make frequency lowering better, but it really isn't something that we should be using with all patients. We should be using it whenever a patient, we present it to a patient, they hear it, and they accept that small distortion, then it's okay. What I excuse me, what I have found is that a lot of patients will say, no, this isn't acceptable to me. I would rather not have it on, and then we can work with whatever else we have left. So again, soft, moderate, loud, MPOs, and then making sure that it's comfortable. And if we need to use frequency lowering, put it in a second program.
Here you go. Thank you so much. Myself as well, I am not a big fan of frequency lowering. I think in the history of my hearing aid fitting, I've used it twice, where just two people happened to like it the entire time I've fitted hearing aids. And it was a case where somebody like really had very, very, very bad high frequencies, and it came all the way down. The frequencies that were not responsive came all the way down to around 3 kilohertz. So that is a place where these patients typically normally used to prefer powerful fittings. So that's the only time I gambled. It was actually a gamble with frequency lowering, and it worked. Most of the time, whenever you try frequency lowering on patients, they'd rather just take it off. And then, of course, before you jump onto frequency lowering, you want to check if the most fundamental frequencies are aidable. For instance, if there is mild, moderate, moderately severe, severe, between say 200 and 250 kilohertz to around 6 kilohertz, and then there is let's say non-responsive 8 kilohertz, or let's say non-responsive 6 kilohertz and 8 kilohertz. You could try your luck with aiding whatever frequencies that are available and try to optimize the comfort that would come with trying to amplify these frequencies before you jump on onto trying to lower the 6 kilohertz, the unaidable 6 kilohertz and the 8 kilohertz back to these other frequencies that are probably very responsive. It could lead into a lot of discomfort. Of course, and again, whenever you're feeding persons with profound, severe to profound losses, there is the whole danger of recruitment. So we also ought to be very cognizant of the fact that recruitment is real. Of course, like I said, the patient is always the ultimate verification. So if you get to a certain level, you're trying to amplify, and the recruitment typically means an abnormal loud perception of sound. So especially among persons with severe to profound hearing losses. So you should always try to strike a balance. Oftentimes, frequency lowering, like Joe has said, you do it in the couple of visits later, and you just try it as an option. If it works for you, well and good. If it doesn't, leave it where the patient feels comfortable. And then again, onto the questions that have been asked here.
Hey, Dennis, before we move on, we have
Yes,
a
please.
comment. We have a comment from Mariam, who says, Mariam, or I don't know how do you
Yeah,
pronounce
it's
it?
Mariam
Mariam,
Muhidin.
sorry. Mariam, thank you
Yeah,
for your comment. Says, I agree with the distortion issue. Having it in second program is such a genius idea. It is a genius idea.
yeah, it is a smart idea. Yeah, it's a smart idea. It's a very good idea. Yeah, so that is really, thank you, Mariam. That is very kind of you to send us feedback. So there is a question that was tossed over here. They are asking, is there a cross option for a hearing aid that is not for BTE hearing aids? I think this Naham Naham, could you pick this up, please?
Can we come up again?
Yeah, somebody is asking if we have a cross and bicross option for hearing aids that are not that are BTE, for BTE hearing aids. Do we have cross and bicross hearing aids for BTE hearing aids?
We do. We do have options. Um,
Yes.
but use those lightly. I mean, cross and bicross is not something that everybody accepts. And it's like, oh, they have a non, a non-hearing ear or a non-aidable ear. I'm gonna put a cross or bicross on them, especially cross, because and Nahum and Dennis, you might agree, if you have a normal ear and you put a receiver in there, it's really hard to accept, unless there's good counseling, unless you show them that this is going to help them with those issues where they're in a classroom setting, round table setting, or in a situation where somebody on this side is talking to them, and they don't usually hear them, or and less understand them, then it's going to be better. But I think cross and bicross are a good tool to have in your arsenal, but use them correctly, and use them and is that when there's not good counseling, and it's just simply, this is good for you and you should wear it, a lot of people just return them. They return those cross or bicross systems. So there's a lot of counseling involved. Do you agree, Nahum, with me?
Yes, I do agree. You find that I'll give an example. I've come across a patient whereby the patient was fitted with a cross fitting, but because of lack of counseling, so the patient was expecting that even the unaided ear has to hear, like they have to perceive something from that ear. So it needs more of counseling. We need to talk to the patients much and much more so that we get to let them understand, like, okay, this is what you're going to get. Like, okay, this year you're going to have an amplifier, rather you're going to have a hearing aid that you're going to use to hear, and then this one is just a microphone that is going to channel this sound to the other ear. So it needs more of counseling rather than just fitting, because you've seen, okay, the patient has this type of a hearing loss, let me go ahead with a cross. But you haven't counseled this patient and let them know, like, okay, this is what is happening. That's why you find that most patients who are using the cross system, you find, or the bicross, you find most of them tend to need their hearing aid, or rather to do away with them, because we haven't counseled them much, much more as we're supposed to do as clinicians.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally
Yes.
agree. Wonderful. And there's in regards to the last question, Omondi lets us know that he prefers using REM in his fittings, in regards to, a better sound. Absolutely, I think that doing REM fittings, real ear measurements, are a key to success. Not everybody has this equipment, and maybe it's because it's expensive equipment. What am I going to get from it? Real ear measurement helps us measure the patient's ear canal volume, so that we can provide the correct pressure for that ear canal. And when we manufacture hearing aids, when Starkey manufactures hearing aids, we manufacture it for a 2 cc volume. And so not everybody has that volume. I would say less than maybe 5% of people have that volume. So when you put that in the ear, it's acting like that ear is 2 cc when it's not, when it really isn't. And what real ear measurement does is it gives you that correct measurement, and it gives you the correct sound pressure for that patient. And then we have Roland. Roland says very interested to attend this meeting today and getting more updated. That's the point, Roland. Thank you very much for your kind comment.
So happy to have you. Thank you very much. So I also add to the whole aspect of perhaps a cross-fitting, where the discomfort that is associated with it. Of course, counseling plays a very integral role in making sure that a patient accepts the fact that the good ear, which performs perfectly, perhaps from an audiological test and from every indication, the good ear is working as properly as it should, getting fitted with a receiver. This might the whole could come with issues of occlusion, and the feeling is not very comfortable. It's perhaps somebody with proper hearing having things inserted in their ears. There has to be a bit of more. Just you have to go a bit of a step further to be able to make them at ease with the whole idea of accepting the new normal. So counseling plays as a very significant role in making sure that there is a bit of success in a cross and bicross fitting. So another of these wonderful
Hey, Dennis.
questions that
Hey,
have been just,
Dennis.
yes, please. Yes, yes.
Can we answer this question? Because I saw this question, and I really, really am intrigued about this question. This question says, which is better, doing poor fitting or no fitting at all? Or no fitting, or no fitting at
I would,
all?
I would love your perception on that, man. Would you rather just not fit or do a shoddy job? Would you rather do a shoddy job or just not do it at all? I would
Like,
rather you don't do it at all, man. Me, I would rather you just don't do it.
if they come into my office and I'm not really good at fitting them, am I going to fit them like badly, or would I rather send them out the door? I need some money, man. I need money. So I'm kidding. I'm joking. No, no, no.
Of course, you have to be kidding.
So I'm gonna fit. No, no. See, and that's the thing. If we realize that we're not gonna do a good fitting, don't fit them. Don't fit them, because that's a lot of money. They're spending money so that they can hear better, and they're not only money, but they're also placing their trust in the professional, and that is a sacred trust between um, a somebody who works with hearing, like an audiologist or a hearing aid dispenser or hearing instrument specialist. They place their trust on us so that we can do the best job, and they trust us because they feel like we've gone to school, we've done the classes, we have experience. But if we don't know what we're doing, definitely I would say take a pause, come to us, get trained, and understand how to do things. And we can walk with you also if you have a patient that says, if you feel like, you're not 100% sure of what you're doing, we can walk with you, with patience and say, oh, listen, you need to do this and you need to do that. You have the support from Starkey, who, what makes us very different from other manufacturers is we don't really care about this. We care about the patient. We care about, that our patient is happy with the hearing aids. And other companies are focused on the bottom line. How much profit can we make during the year? Um, I was in Minneapolis. I just got home yesterday, and I saw Bill Austin. And Bill Austin is the founder and owner of the company. And you know what he does? You know what he was doing. He was fitting hearing aids. He's 82 years old. He's got all the money in the world. He's in, at Starkey at the Center for Excellence fitting hearing aids, and on the modifying shells and things like that. So again, um, we need to do the best job for our patients. And if we feel like we're not doing the best job, then let's get trained up. Call us, and we're more than happy to help you out. So yeah, don't fit the bill.
That is it. That's it, man.
Okay.
That's just don't fit it. Just don't fit it. Just sorry, Neham. I need our viewers to come to the reality of effects of living with poorly fitted or badly fitted hearing aid. We are talking about. It's not just about the money. It's about the experiences of this particular patient. I want you to put yourself in a situation, like put yourself in the patient's shoe, where let's say you have done a wrong fitting and you've probably fitted a mild to moderate hearing aid, mild to moderate loss with an hearing aid that is supposed to be for a profound. We are talking about a situation where you're thinking of that loud sound in church with the amplification with the microphone and the speakers brought all the way this close into your ears, and you have to live with it every other day. It's unbearable. So to avoid such effects, because there are dangers of even making things worse for such a patient. Let's say, for instance, if you over amplify a fitting that is not supposed to get that much power of amplification, there is the danger of noise-induced hearing loss, so which could further drop the hearing levels of a patient. So always try to put yourself in the patient's shoes before you can even think about the money. It's not about the money. The money will come. You do a proper, good, perfect fitting. The patient will go and tell another patient about how comfortable they feel, how relatable you are, how wonderful they're having their listening experiences, and they will bring each other to your clinic. So if you have an option of fitting an awful fitting and not fitting, please don't fit. Over to you, Neham.
Okay, thank you so much. I do support Dennis. You find like even at your clinic, you find like 90% of the patients you see, they are patient referrals. So if you're not fitting the patients well, or rather your fitting is not that good, or rather you didn't prioritize proper fitting, you find you bringing about discomfort that can happen. Maybe you just made a mold that is a little bit big. That's discomfort. That's not good fitting to the patient. And then you find like in case a patient needed a power plus hearing, the hearing aid, which is a power plus, let's say it's towards profound, and then you went ahead and fitted with an IIC, you find like the patient is not going to have adequate sound quality, or rather the patient is not going to benefit well from the hearing aid. And that way you find the patient is so dissatisfied with the hearing aids. That way you find that the patient will have a negative perception towards hearing aids. And since the hearing aids is not something that you get fitted like today and then you get 100% today, it's something, a journey that you're moving together with this patient. You find that if the patient is having the negative thoughts, or rather dissatisfied with the fitting that you had, this patient is not going to adapt well to the hearing aid, or rather the patient is not going to benefit from the hearing aids. So I recommend no fitting over poor fitting, because a poor fitting, it's going to aggravate the hearing loss because it's bringing out a lot of noise, and then the patient is going to have that noise-induced hearing loss, and then the patient can experience multiple feedbacks, and then you find that the patient is not going to achieve what, or rather his expectations when he came to your clinic. So as much as we need that money, we can put money aside and care for the patient, because we told that to care is to love. So if you're not caring for this patient, you're not showing that love. So the kind of the love, the kind of that light, by doing proper fitting to this patient. Thank you.
You
Yep.
so much, Nahum. I've just been reminded of words of our the founder, Mr. Bill Austin. He always says that the ear is the boss. So if your fitting is not pleasing the boss, do away with it.
They get fired.
Don't don't give it to the boss.
The
If the
ears
boss
gonna be
is
like,
not happy, then let it go. Absolutely, absolutely.
hey,
So
Dennis,
thank you.
we got a question from Muthoni, who says, I joined in late. Pardon me if this question has been answered already. How much headroom is enough headroom when doing simulation? I'm not sure what that means. Do you guys know?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So whenever I don't know, let me try to get the. Let me just try. You can be able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Let me just see. Let me just see. So while I work on this, there is a question that is here, very relatable to Joe. There is a question that one of our features was asked by their patient. Uh, well, do they need to use hearing aids in a plane? Can a client use hearing aids while on a plane? If yes, what is the experience? Joe is a frequent flyer and he uses hearing aids. Joe?
Yes. I have traveled over 4 million kilometers, and I would say about 3 million of those kilometers around the world have been with hearing aids. And it's the same thing. I think that airplane is a very difficult situation to understand speech because you got the noise of the plane. Whether it's a 3 hour flight or my longest flight was 14 hours. During that time, it's really really difficult to understand what people are saying because you've got the that sound in the background, and if my wife is next to me trying to talk to me without my hearing aids, I'm not going to understand her. So the experience is very very positive. It's positive when you do a good job with the compression. Again, soft, medium, loud, and your MPO. So you need to make sure that those are are in their correct place. You want to make sure that soft sounds are not too loud. Otherwise, it's going to be very very difficult. And the other thing is those situations, like for me, if I wear a very very basic hearing aid, I can tell the difference between wearing a very basic hearing aid and my Genesis 24s. I'm not saying, fit Genesis 24s on everybody who flies on an airplane, but just know that there is a difference because the artificial intelligence and all of the noise canceling features, or all the noise managers, and your directional microphones do make a big difference in situations where there is background noise. So I have a mild hearing loss in the high frequencies. If I take off my hearing aids, speech becomes very difficult for me in the noise. In a quiet environment, it's not a problem, but in a noisy situation, it really is. So wherever it's a plane or a train or a car or a submarine or whatever it is, a spaceship, make sure make sure that your patient is hearing as best as possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. So, I'm just trying to get to the software. It's requiring some additional downloads to be done, which we don't have the time for. But typically, what Ms. Mudhoni is asking, when you're doing a product simulation, how much headroom is good enough? And Ms. Mudhoni, normally, for instance, for example, a receiver of say 50 dB for a RIC hearing aid is supposed to amplify an upwards amplification of 20 dB and a downward amplification of 20 dB. So I think that is well enough a duration for you to see what headroom you want to get. I don't know. I hope that answers your question. So an example, if you have a receiver of 40 dB, this 40 dB can amplify mild hearing loss, and it can also do up to, say, additionally up to 20 dB up. So that means it can go, it can amplify to 50, around 50 to 59. I hope that answers your question. Somehow, I hope Ms. Mudhoni can be able to let us know that her question is answered. All right.
Yes, and then we have another let's see, Roland said, very well said, Nahum. It's all about the patient. Patient first, then money. You want to deliver a good service first. That is so true,
Absolutely.
that Roland.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you do
So,
a good job, the
very
bank is
good.
happy. The bank is happy. Your wallet is going to be happy. But it shouldn't. It should. It should not be. It should not be the focus of our work.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. I hear you, Dr. Joe. I'm just trying to quickly peruse through some of more of the questions that have been asked.
There's some
Okay.
fun.
There's
Some fun ones. How about the eats one? The eats.
Dr. Joe. All right, all right. We'll talk about the each one. So there is a question that has been asked about pediatric hearing aid fittings. What are our opinions about pediatric fittings?
Pediatric fittings
Yeah.
is something that we need to be very careful of. I would say if you're not if you've not been trained on doing pediatric fittings, you shouldn't do them because there is a lot of work that needs to be done with pediatric fittings. You know, my youngest patient that I ever fit with hearing aids is 3 months old, and when you have a 3 month old, you have to make sure that what you're putting on that patient, what you're fitting them with, is correct because, and that takes a lot of work. You know, you have to do your OAEs and you have to do your ABRs, and you want to make sure that, you know, if they're older, you get them into a booth and do VRAs, and you do all of this work so that you check each and every exam and you say, okay, all of them are coincide with the information. I can say that this patient has this hearing loss with these thresholds, at least at 500, 1000, 2 and 4000 hertz, at least in those frequencies. And then when you fit the hearing aid, you want to make sure that that the hearing aid has access to DSL V5. So we have these hearing aids, right? And then you want to make sure that you know how to take a good impression on the baby. You know, at 3 months old, it's very difficult to take impressions. You need sometimes you need special, you know, special equipment to take those impressions. You want to have real ear measurement. Yes, you want to have real ear measurement, at least simulated, so that you can so that you can have these fine adjustments for that really tiny ear, because it's not a 2cc coupler anymore. It's way tinier. You want to make sure that your MPOs are correct, and those are also come from the DSL formula. So you cannot, you know, test the patient, you know, the baby, to see what their uncomfortable thresholds are. You can't do it. So there's a lot of things that you need to understand way before the fitting, and then during the fitting have access to hearing aids with DSL, which Starkey has, and then know how to fit those correctly. And if you have a real ear measurement, so you can do simulated real ear measurement, that is a powerful tool. So it's not just about the baby has a hearing loss, let me program the hearing aids, put them in the ear, because you can do a lot of damage. You can really cause a lot of damage in the sense of over amplifying, or you can do a lot of damage in under amplifying and the patient's not getting any benefit. And then the other thing is that you need to work with a speech therapist so that this baby can, you know, or this child can learn how to hear again, and then, you know, process all that and learn how to talk. So, you know, what do you think, Nahum?
Yeah, I'm in support of that because I'll give an example. You find the young kids. I can give even a kid of like 2 years. I've come across one. It's really hard. I found it really hard on my end because I'm not specialized in that, because I'm not able to figure out like, okay, am I giving enough amplification? Am I not giving enough amplification? So in such situations, I tend to refer them to someone who's specialized in pediatrics. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Obviously, what I hear the both of you say is that pediatric fitting is not for everybody. If it's not within your scope, try to refer. You lose nothing in admitting that you're not able to do something. Every other time, like we always say, iron sharpens iron. We can always do better in making sure that we put the patient first before ourselves. It's not about the money once again. It's about that patient who you might mistakenly give over amplification, maybe a child who grows with an over amplified hearing situation, and they probably end up having a hearing drop even further due to noise induction, or you get given under amplification where you cannot even live with yourself if you have taken money from a parent who the hearing aid that you've sold to them is not helping them. So personally, I think that when it comes to pediatric fitting, subjective and objective tests come to play. They should balance really well, and this needs a little bit more training, more of skills, and more research, so that you can be able to balance between what the OAEs that Dr. Joy is talking about, the results of the OAEs and the bearers and the bears and all that, vis-a-vis or the observation that you'll be taking, or rather you'll be picking from the patient, the child's response after you have fitted with them with a hearing aid. So once again, I think uh, if you feel you're not good at it, you can always refer. There's always someone who would be able to give them the best option. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We're slowly getting closer to closing the session. I'm quickly perusing here. Do you have anything from your end, Joe, that you'd like us to look at while I look at this?
Yes, let me see. There's there's a lot of questions. I think we'll have to do another session because
I know, man.
this is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
This is a lot
I,
of fun. I enjoy all these questions that we're getting
so
from
while you peruse, there's a question about fitting perforated hearing eardrums.
there's
And I want to tie it. I want to tie it with perforated eardrums and fitting hearing aids that have chronic otitis media.
yeah. So when you have perforated eardrums, that is not necessary. I mean, as long as it's been resolved by by the ENT doctor, and the ENT doctor says, hey, they have a huge perforated eardrum, we can't do anything about it. You can go ahead and fit the patient. Or if you have chronic, ear infections, and you have chronic, issues with the ear, how should you fit it? Well, here's the thing. A lot of people will say, well, you need a huge vent so that you don't have this issue where you're creating an environment for infections and things like that, but that doesn't work. What we need to do is fit the hearing loss. And, of course, we need to take into consideration the perforated eardrum, or the chronic issues with infections. But our job is to make things audible. So if somebody has, for example, a moderate to severe hearing loss, and they need, for example, a size 1 vent, which is a small vent. But if they say, no, you need to put a large vent, what's going to happen? They're going to put a large vent. Are they going to hear well? They're going to hear terrible. They're not going to hear well because everything's leaking out. We don't have the pressure that we need to make it sound audible. So you got this huge vent. Now they're in a situation where they need to hear. They need to hear. They're not hearing. What's going to be frustrating is, I'm not hearing. So why do I have this thing on? They'll take them off, and and it's a huge issue. So in the end, what I would say is, work with the ENT doctor so that you understand how long they can have it in the ear. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 4 hours, and they need to take them off, which is a reality. You won't be able to hear all day long because we don't want to cause an issue with the ear, but we do want to help you hear better. So there needs to be a balance. And if there's not that balance, then it's either one or the other, and neither one is a good situation. Do you guys agree?
We do. I personally do agree. Before you rush into a fitting perforated ear, just like Doe has said, you'd rather you get it cleared by an ENT physician. Of course, as audiologists, you normally have the red flags whenever you're dealing with the patients, and then you encounter some of these experiences. they are considered, they are perceived red flags to probably rethinking your fitting experience, so that you don't go fitting things like active infection, uh, things like sudden hearing losses and all that. We always have to refer to a specialist so that it can be able to be cleared before the patient can be then brought back to us, so that we can be able to do safe hearing aid fitting. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Joe. Unless Naham has anything to add, Naham, are we okay?
Yeah, we okay. I'm in support of what you've said and what Dr. Joe has said. We need to try as much as we can to try and have that connection with the ENTs as audiologists. We need to have that collaboration, because if you're working in your clinic, you have a patient who has a perforation, or rather, let's say it's an active one, the patient has not, or rather, the patient has not been cleared, and you need to refer them back to an ENT. But in situations whereby you don't have someone to refer back to, then you find someone is like, oh, I don't have someone to refer to. Let me show you how to clean your ears and go ahead and have the hearing aids. But let's try to have that interprofessional relationships from different clinicians, different areas, specialties. And also, we encourage our patients as much as we can to wear the hearing aids, but to remove them, at least get their ears, get some air, because the more you block it, there's that moisture that is there, and then you find infections keep on developing each and every time. So to avoid that, counseling also needs to step in.
Very good. That's
Absolutely.
really good. That's a great point right there. So
We've got
counseling plays a very significant role. Yes, Dr. Joe.
we've got 3 minutes left. Three
Oh
minutes
yeah.
left. This time has flown by.
Yeah.
Uh,
Please
Ayuda
let the
says,
record.
please let the
Oh
record.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be recorded.
Yeah,
It's gonna be on YouTube.
it's being recorded. You'll be able to share it. So the very last one, and then we call it a day, ladies and gentlemen. There is a question about now objection, handling objection, and of course, there is a question that has been asked: how do you handle a patient who becomes violent as soon as you fit in a hearing aid?
I was like,
Yeah, we always have such characters as well.
when I saw this
What
question, I was
about
like,
you?
what does that mean? Does it like, is it punching? Is it like, are we getting headshots? Trying to put those hearing aids on the ear. What
I
is that?
think I think he's talking about that initial reaction when you've just fitted them a hearing aid, the first experience for the first time,
Oh,
especially for persons that have probably never used hearing aids, and then suddenly you give them these hearing aids, and then that very first, some will be like very calm, others will be like all over the place.
because
But
if they get violent, then I'm like, you got other issues. You got some problems. Like, hearing is not up here. It's down here. You got some other issues going on. But I would say that in our job, in our profession, we need to make sure that we communicate everything to the patient. When you establish rapport, when you establish this good communication with your patient, they'll trust you. They'll trust you. If there is not trust, then that's when they'll say, you know what, this isn't for me. They get upset. Some people cry and like, I don't want this, and it's because they don't understand. They don't understand, why we're doing this. What their benefits is going to be. That in the beginning, it's not going to be 100%. I'm going to hear everything. You know what recruitment is? Recruitment is when somebody puts hearing aids on and it's a bad sound or it's uncomfortable. It's the brain, the part of the brain that's being stimulated, which is the auditory cortex. You've got other senses that took over that area, especially the eyes, vision from the back to the front. What you're doing is you're stimulating the eyes as well. You're stimulating other parts of the brain. Also, the part of the brain that has feelings, like emotional feelings. So there's a lot going on there, that at the brain level, that the patient is reacting to. So it's not necessarily that they're afraid of the hearing aids or anything like that. Is that 7, 10, 15, 20 years have passed, the brain has reorganized itself, and when you're right? And when you're stimulating the auditory system, you're stimulating other parts of the brain. So you need to make sure that you're understanding, your patient, and then that you're explaining things to your patient so that they feel more comfortable and that they know what they're going to expect when they put these hearing aids in the ear. So it shouldn't be just pop the hearing aids in on the ear and like turn the volume up and like, hey, how does my voice sound? No, it's way too much for them. And so I would say just, be kind, be gentle, be very sensitive, and have empathy for your patient, because it's not, all the fun in the world. When I first started wearing hearing aids, it was like, man, this is weird. This is like, I can hear better, but it's just a little strange. And as time went by, it just became a part of my daily routine, and it just became completely normal. But in the beginning, it was a little hard.
Interesting, man. I am particularly amazed by the whole idea of recruitment being an issue of the post-cortical reorganization of the auditory cortex. I really had not looked at it that way. It's very interesting. That is very interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe Garcia. Thank you so much, Miss Nahum. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We're having a wonderful time enjoying your company, and it's time to call it a day for today. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we say goodbye.
You guys take care, everybody, and be good. And I will see you next time. Thank you for attending our live webinar. We've got our producer in the back, handling all this, and we appreciate you. Thank you very much. This is going to be recorded. It's already recorded. Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, because there's a lot of more content coming to make your life a lot easier. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you
Okay.
next time.
Thank you so much and goodbye.